You know that feeling when you walk into a room full of adults who immediately start talking to you like you're 5? Yeah, well, try being the only human at the Galactic Archaeological Institute. Every conversation begins with, "Oh, how precious," or "Look at the little newcomer species trying archaeology." Dr. Jake Morrison pressed his palm against the bioscanner at Kepler Station's main research facility, watching the crystalline interface pulse with alien algorithms that made his quantum physics degree feel like finger painting. 43 years old, 2 decades of fieldwork on Earth, and he was still getting patted on the head, metaphorically speaking, by beings who looked like walking gemstones and sentient gas clouds. Morrison. The voice resonated through harmonic frequencies that made his teeth ache. Director Veltar approached, their translucent blue form crackling with electrical patterns that Jake had learned to interpret as mild annoyance. "You're late for orientation." "Traffic was murder," Jake replied, gesturing vaguely at the viewport showing the endless void of space. "You know how it is." Veltar's crystalline features shifted, probably the alien equivalent of an eye roll. At 12,000 years old, Veltar was practically an infant by crystalline standards, which made their condescension toward a 40-something human particularly grating. "Your species has been spacefaring for what, 2 centuries? It's charming that you think you can contribute to archaeological research spanning millions of years." Veltar's form pulsed with what Jake recognized as barely contained superiority. "But the Council insists on diversity initiatives, so here we are." Jake bit back a dozen responses, each more sarcastic than the last. The Galactic Council had been very clear: humanity's inclusion in interstellar archaeology was more about political optics than actual expertise. Every other species had been exploring the cosmos for millennia while humans were still figuring out fire. The orientation room buzzed with activity. A serpentine researcher coiled around a holographic display of ancient ruins, their scaled hide shimmering with age. Nearby, a collective of hive minds shared consciousness through bioneural links, processing data faster than any individual could comprehend. And then there was Jake, the token human with his laughably primitive brain and linear thinking. "Today's assignment," Veltar announced, their voice cutting through the ambient chatter, "involves cataloging artifacts from the Meridian excavation. Third-tier ruins, nothing too complex for our newer colleagues." The emphasis on "newer" felt like a microscopic needle under Jake's skin. The Meridian site floated in the holographic display, a sprawling complex of structures that predated Earth's formation by 20 million years. Jake studied the angular architecture, the way shadow and light played across surfaces that had weathered cosmic storms since before his solar system existed. "The builders," whispered Kexandra, a gaseous entity whose consciousness manifested as swirling purple mist. "Their civilization peaked 47 million years ago. Pure mathematical perfection in every design." Jake nodded politely while mentally calculating just how impossible that timeline was. The universe was old, sure, but 47 million years of consistent architectural evolution. That suggested a stability that bordered on the supernatural. His workstation hummed to life, displaying a queue of artifacts waiting for analysis. Standard procedure, visual documentation, material composition analysis, cultural context evaluation. Boring work that the senior researchers delegated to newcomers like him. The first artifact materialized in the holographic field. A fragment of metallic ceramic covered in intricate patterns. Jake initiated the quantum dating protocol, watching as subatomic scanners peeled back layers of time like an onion. The numbers started rolling across his display. 47,300,000 years, plus or minus 50,000. Standard builder timeline. Nothing unusual there. Jake moved to the next artifact, a crystalline matrix that seemed to pulse with residual energy. The scanner engaged, diving deep into molecular structures that held memories of stellar radiation and cosmic decay. The numbers appeared. Jake blinked. Refreshed the display. Ran the scan again. 47,300,000 years. But beneath that, embedded in the quantum signature like a hidden watermark, something else entirely. A genetic marker. A very specific, very familiar genetic marker. Jake's hands trembled as he cross-referenced the pattern with the Institute's biological database. The match appeared instantly, highlighted in crimson warning text that made his stomach drop. Homo sapiens. Human DNA. Not contamination from his own touch, the quantum seal prevented that. Not a processing error, he'd run the scan 4 times. This was a genuine human genetic signature embedded in an artifact that predated humanity by 47 million years. "Hey, Veltar." Jake called out, his voice carefully casual despite the earthquake happening in his chest. "Could you take a look at this reading?" The crystalline director floated over, their electrical patterns shifting to what Jake recognized as mild curiosity mixed with parental patience. "Having trouble with the basic scanning protocols? I suppose your species' neural architecture isn't quite." Veltar stopped mid-sentence. Their entire crystalline form flickered, electrical patterns stuttering like a crashed computer program. "This can't be correct," Veltar whispered, their harmonic voice dropping to subsonic frequencies. "That's what I thought," Jake said. "But I've run it 6 times now. Same result." Around the lab, other researchers began to notice the disturbance. Conversations died as Kexandra's gaseous form drifted closer, followed by the serpentine archaeologist and 3 different hive mind clusters. "Run it again," Veltar commanded, but their voice carried none of its usual authority. Instead, Jake heard something he'd never expected from a 12,000-year-old being. Fear. The scan results appeared for the 7th time. Human genetic material. 47 million years old. Quantum verified, carbon dated, and absolutely impossible. "Well," Jake said, breaking the stunned silence that had engulfed the laboratory, "this is either the archaeological discovery of several lifetimes, or someone's playing the universe's most elaborate practical joke." Veltar's crystalline form continued flickering, electrical patterns now cycling through what Jake was beginning to recognize as the alien equivalent of a panic attack. Because if this reading was accurate, if human DNA really was embedded in builder artifacts from 47 million years ago, then everything the Galactic Council believed about cosmic history, about the age and hierarchy of civilizations, about humanity's place as the universe's newest and most primitive species, was completely and utterly wrong. 3 weeks later, Jake had stopped sleeping. Not by choice, his brain simply refused to shut down after discovering human DNA in ruins from 12 different worlds. 12 different builder sites, all predating known civilization, all carrying the same impossible genetic signature. "You look terrible," observed Dr. Lyra Voss, the station's only other human researcher. She'd arrived on the morning transport, ostensibly to help with the contamination investigation. Which was bureaucratic speak for, make this problem disappear before it causes a panic. "Thanks. Really what I needed to hear." Jake gestured at the holographic display surrounding his workstation. Quantum dating results floated in the air like accusatory ghosts. "Sleep is overrated when you're accidentally dismantling the foundation of galactic civilization." Lyra studied the data, her expression shifting from skeptical to concerned to something approaching awe. "Jake, this is insane. If these readings are accurate." "They are. I've had 3 independent labs verify them. The Vegan Collective, the Andromedan Institute, even the quantum monks on Epsilon Station. Same results every time." Jake rubbed his eyes, which felt like they'd been sandblasted. Human DNA. 47 million years old. In ruins that supposedly predate our species by geological ages. But that would mean that we're not the newcomers everyone thinks we are. "Yeah, I've been doing the math too." The implications were staggering. If humans had somehow been present 47 million years ago, it meant the entire galactic hierarchy was built on a fundamental lie. That ancient civilizations that lorded their superiority over humanity might actually be younger than the species they treated like children. "There's more," Jake said, calling up a new display. "I've been analyzing the pattern distribution. The human genetic markers aren't random, they're concentrated in specific areas of each ruin. Control centers. Navigation arrays. What the builders called temporal interface chambers. Lyra leaned forward, her face illuminated by the soft blue glow of the hologram. Temporal interface. As in time manipulation. That's the theory. According to builder translations, these chambers were designed for chronological navigation, whatever that means. And every single one contains human DNA. So either ancient humans were the builders' lab assistants, or we were the builders. The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Around them, the research station continued its normal operations, alien researchers cataloging artifacts, graduate students running endless scans, the steady hum of technology that had been advancing for millions of years. None of them aware that their entire understanding of cosmic history might be fiction. Jake, if this is true, if humans really are the first ones, then we're looking at the universe's greatest cover-up. Jake pulled up another display, this one showing a timeline of galactic civilizations. Look at the emergence patterns. The crystallines appeared 38 million years ago. The serpentines, 35 million. The hive minds, 32 million. All after the builder civilization collapsed. Exactly. And notice the gaps. Perfect spacing between emergence events. Almost like someone was seeding the galaxy with new species at carefully calculated intervals. Lyra stared at the timeline, her face pale. You're suggesting that humans, ancient humans, created all the other spacefaring species? That we're not part of galactic civilization, we're its architects? I'm suggesting that maybe the reason we adapted to space travel so quickly, why our technology advanced so rapidly once we made first contact, is because we're remembering rather than learning. The research lab's main door hissed open, and Director Veltar entered with 3 security drones floating behind them. The crystallines' electrical patterns were cycling through rapid pulses, definitely not a good sign. Dr. Morrison, Veltar's voice carried harmonics Jake had never heard before. You're to cease all research immediately and report to council chambers. I take it the other species aren't thrilled about my findings. The Council has determined that your research poses a significant threat to galactic stability. These artifacts are clearly contaminated, and your insistence on pursuing this fantasy is undermining millions of years of established history. Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. Right. Because the possibility that the universe's primitive species might actually be its oldest is too threatening to consider. The matter is closed, Dr. Morrison. No, it's not. Jake called up the final piece of evidence he'd been saving. Because I found something else in the temporal interface chambers. Something that explains everything. The holographic display shifted, revealing a complex schematic covered in symbols that looked almost familiar. Almost like writing Jake remembered from childhood dreams. Temporal displacement protocols, Jake said, watching Veltar's crystalline form flicker with what he now recognized as fear. The builders didn't just manipulate time, they used it to seed the galaxy with life. They scattered themselves across history, creating new species, new civilizations, ensuring that even if something happened to their original timeline, intelligence would survive. This is speculation, Veltar protested, but their electrical patterns told a different story. The genetic markers aren't just human DNA. They're instructions. A guide for rebuilding civilization if the original ever fell. And the reason every spacefaring species develops similar technologies, similar social structures, similar exploration patterns. Because they're all following the same blueprint. Lyra was staring at the schematic, her face white with shock. Jake, if you're right, if humans really did seed the galaxy with intelligent life, then every other species owes their existence to us. Which explains why the Council is so desperate to suppress this information. The entire galactic power structure is based on the idea that humans are newcomers, primitives who need guidance from their elders. If it turns out we're actually the parents, the revolution would be instantaneous, Veltar finished, their voice barely audible. Every species would question their place in the hierarchy. Every treaty, every trade agreement, every diplomatic arrangement would collapse. Jake nodded. So here's my question, Director. What's more important? The truth, or the comfortable lie that keeps everyone in their assigned roles? The security drones moved closer, weapons systems powering up with soft whines. Veltar's crystalline form pulsed with rapid electrical patterns, definitely panic now. Dr. Morrison, you will surrender all research materials and submit to memory modification. This conversation never happened. Memory modification won't work on me, Jake said calmly. Because I'm not just remembering the research, I'm remembering who we used to be. The dreams, the intuitive understanding of technologies we've never seen before, the way human children adapt to alien environments like they were born for space travel. We're not learning to be spacefaring, we're remembering how. Jake looked at Lyra, then at Veltar, then at the security drones that could vaporize him before he finished his next sentence. The weight of 47 million years of history pressed down on his shoulders. So what's it going to be? Do we tell the galaxy that the species they've been condescending to for 2 centuries is actually their creator? Or do we bury the truth and let everyone keep playing their roles in a cosmic lie? The silence stretched between them, heavy with the implications of choice. In the end, Jake thought, maybe that was what made humans different from all the species they'd created. Not their age or their technology or their temporal manipulation abilities. But their willingness to face uncomfortable truths, even when those truths could shatter worlds.